Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. This video I'd like to show you how to make the square for week 5 of the Crochet Along Last Dance on the Beach by Scheepjes. You'll either be using the Color Crafter or the Merino soft yarn this week, and also do please check your pattern exactly which color you need for the square this week. The square with these cute little footsteps is designed by Nerissa from Miss Neriss, and of course in loving memory of Marinka. A few words regarding hook size for this week. I actually had to drop a hook size relative to the one I used last week. So for my Merino Soft I used a 4mm hook, and for the Color Crafter I used a 3.5mm hook. So I used a size smaller than I did last week, in which I used actually a 4.5 for the Merino Softs, and now I used the 4. For the Color Crafter I used a 3.5. So I had to drop a hook size, but then again maybe your tension is totally different and you need to use the same hook size. So that's the reason why we have to keep on checking how we are relative to our gauge swatch to make sure that our squares are all the same size. So keep on noting which hook size you need for your square this week. I'll be taking you step by step through the rows making up this week. With a slip knot on my hook, I'm going to do a chain 30. It's 1, 2, 3, 0, 28, 29, 30 chain stitches. Now I'm going to go back and work a half treble in the third loop from your hook, and then work a half treble on every stitch until you get to the beginning. So this is the same as we've done a few times now, where that first row is a row of half trebles. Work a half treble on every stitch. And then of course when you get to the end you work the last trebles, half trebles on these last stitches, and in your first chain stitch also. And then that completes row 1, in which you've worked 28 half trebles. For row 2, chain 2, this does not count as a stitch, and turn your work. We're now going to work a half treble on every stitch. So also in that very first one, because the chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch. So that's your first half treble. Then work a half treble on every stitch, so that's 28 in total until you get to the other side. Then in the next row we'll be working our first seagull stitch, and that's just a moment where you really need to pay attention that you're picking up your stitches in the correct loop, and then we can really start getting this fun little pattern into our square. And then work your last half trebles. And the very last one is of course here on this very first stitch. You work that last half treble. The chain 2, turn here, you don't work that because you only want the 28 stitches. So now you've worked 28 half trebles again, and now we're ready for the next row where we're going to make those nice little stitches. Row 3 again starts with chain 2. Which does not count as a stitch, and we're going to start by making 15 half trebles. So on the first stitch, again that very first one, 1, 2, make 15 of these, 15 half trebles, 3, 15. So we've done 15 half trebles. Now we're ready to do the seagull stitch, and I just want to show you where you're going to be pulling up loops, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be yarning over, and then in 3 positions you're going to pick up a loop. Now take a look at where you are at the moment. This is the stitch you're currently in, so the next working stitch is going to be this stitch here, this stitch. And what we're going to be doing is we're not going to be pulling up a loop in this stitch, but we're going to go to the previous stitch and then the base. So in this position here, this hole here, you're going to be pulling up a loop through that hole. Then you're going to be pulling up a loop 2 rows down in the stitch where you're currently in. So that's going to be this stitch, then come down 1 row, 2 rows. So that's actually going to be right on the edge of your square. You're going to be picking up a loop. And then 1 stitch forward, 1 row down. So this is still 1 row down, 1 stitch forward. You're going to be picking up a loop through this position. So you're not working at the top of the stitch here, but you're going to be working at the base of the stitches, where you're going to be working 1 back, 1 down, 1 forward. So look at the stitch. This is the stitch you're supposed to be working. You're going to go to the base of that stitch, and then picking up a loop, 1 back, 1 down, 1 forward. That's the rhythm we're going to be doing. I'll show you slowly how we're doing this stitch. So to do the seagull stitch, we're going to start with a yarn over, and then in the stitch where we're supposed to work, you go to the base of that stitch. So this is the top, as if you were to take the half treble. You have to go to the base and then go 1 back. So that's actually underneath the stitch where you currently where we just worked. So 1 back, pick up a loop from the back and bring forward and bring that loop up. You really don't want to keep this too short. You really want to give it a little bit of room. Now you're going to go to that same position, but 1 down. So right on the edge of your work. Pick up a loop from the back, and again pull up that loop and give it a bit of room. Really bring this loop up. And then 1 forward. Remember I said that's the base of the stitch, then 1 position forward. From the back and bring up. And at this point you've picked up 3 loops and you've got that yarn over. You're going to take all of these off in one go. So you're going to do yarn over and pull through all of them. And in the process you're bringing these 3 threads together, and you're making a little foot basically. So now we're going to skip the stitch that we just worked, and you're really going to have to pull your work apart a little bit open, because that's the stitch we're now going to be working in. It's this stitch here, because here to the back there is still that stitch there. Can you see it? That stitch, that's the one that's been covered by the seagull stitch, and that's, so you're going to skip that, and then the next stitch you're going to be working in. You're going to make a half treble into that stitch, and this stitch is hard to accidentally also skip, because the seagull stitch can be just a little broad and kind of take up room, and hence also cover that first stitch that you now need. So that was 1, 2, I'm going to work 12, 3, 4, we're going to work 12 half trebles, and if something goes wrong, you will either have 11 or you'll have 13. And then you know that you've either skipped 1 too many or 1 too few. Of your stitches. So then that's, I can guarantee you that's where it went wrong. Because I've also had that issue that I came here and I didn't have 12, I had 11, and then I accidentally skipped 1 stitch too many. And then your last one is on your last stitch. And if everything went right, we now have 12 half trebles. Let me just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. Yes, 12 half trebles after the seagull stitch. So this first one, that first stitch there, it's very important that you get that in the right position. So if everything went right, you're going to have 12 half trebles here, just after the seagull stitch. And this, what you've just done, this stitch, you're going to be repeating that a few more times. The end of row 3 is a good point to just check for size, because like I said, this square I actually had to drop a hook size. I'm just going to take my gauge swatch, and you specifically want to check for width at this point, because it's too early to check for height. I'm putting my work on my gauge swatch, and you see here that you're perfectly onto size. I'm working with a 3.5mm hook and the color crafter yarn here, and I'm perfectly, if I have my edge later on, I'm going to be exactly the right size. When I worked my first few rows, I had a 4mm hook, and then I was really over. I was over here on my square. I was really a bit over, and that was a sign for me that I had to drop a hook size. So keep on checking your gauge, because you don't want to be finished with your square and then realize, oh, it's too big, because that's really going to be a bother. So keep on checking your gauge to see that you're still on the right track. Row 4, chain 2, turn your work and work a half treble on every stitch. This you're going to be doing a lot, that you're going to be doing one row that contains a seagull stitch, and then you're going to be doing the next row, which is only a row of half trebles, and that you're going to be repeating basically until the end of the square. I'll show you 2 more rows with the seagull stitch, and then I'll jump to the end of the square. For row 5, again chain 2, which again does not count as a stitch, and turn your work. This row we're again going to be doing a seagull stitch. We start by making 18 half trebles. So you're going to be just a little further than you were last time. So again, in that first stitch, work a half treble and work 18. 3 and 18 half trebles. So now again we're going to work a seagull stitch, and I'll again show you exactly where you're going to be picking up a loop. So this is the stitch where you're currently in, so the next stitch is this one. Go to the base of that stitch, of your next stitch. You're going to be picking up a loop 1 stitch before, that's going to be to that one. You're going to be picking up 1 stitch down, that's going to be here, and you're going to be picking up 1 stitch forward, it's going to be there. So you're always picking up a triangle at the base of these stitches. So the stitch where you're going to be working your next stitch, go to the base, then go 1 back, pick up a loop, 1 down, pick up a loop, 1 forward, pick up a loop. Right, I'll show you. Yarn over, then go to the base of the next stitch, the base, then go 1 back, pick up a loop, and really bring this loop up to give yourself some room. Base and then down, pick up a loop, the base of that stitch and forward, pick up a loop. 3 loops on your hook plus the yarn over. So yarn over and pull through all of them. Now we're again going to be skipping the stitch that's immediately behind this seagull stitch, and on the last stitches there's going to be 9, going to work 9 half trebles, and this here's the first one, just having some trouble getting into. Yes, there we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and on your last stitch you do number 9, this one here, like so. And you can see how I've now worked that second seagull stitch there, and now this you're going to be repeating. You're now again going to make a row of half trebles, then you're going to make one after 15 half trebles, and then after 18. So these rows you're going to be basically repeating until the end of the square. But I'll show you this seagull stitch once more. So row 6 is again a row of half trebles. So chain 2 and turn and work a half treble in every stitch. And this is always the same. Between a row that contains a seagull stitch, you work a row of half trebles. Again, start with chain 2, turn your work, and now we're again going to be making a seagull stitch, this time after 15 half trebles, because that's going to give us the first one. But it's basically the same. You either work 15 trebles or 18 trebles, then work a seagull stitch, and then work the last trebles. So this is, you're going to repeat until your square is big enough, so until you've worked 24 rows. Show just one more time the seagull stitch. I'm just going to make the half trebles to get me to the correct position. Then I'll show you the stitch once more. So the correct number of stitches again, half trebles. So we're going to work a seagull stitch again, the position where your next stitch, go to the base of that stitch. Then you're going to pick up a loop, one stitch back, one stitch down, one stitch forward. So the base of your stitch, back, down, forward. Yarn over, because that's how we do start this stitch. So go to next stitch, the base, one down, one right. My rights and my lefts aren't my best thing. Pick up a loop, base of the stitch, go one down, pick up a loop, base of the stitch to the right, the left, pick one up and pull through. Then make sure you get properly into the next stitch to work a half treble, and then work a half treble till the end. And this is your repeat that you're now going to repeat until you've had 24 rows. When we're halfway, so after 12 rows, we're just quickly going to check for size again. I'm now roughly halfway, so I just want to check for size again. You can see I've now have 5 little footsteps. Putting my square on my gauge swatch, you see how I'm good for width, and if you look at the height, that I'm roughly halfway on height also. So with a 3.5mm hook and the Color Crafter yarn, I get a good fit on my gauge swatch. So do double check that you're still on track. I'm going to continue with the repeats until I've done all 24 repeats. So those are all the seagull stitches and the half trebles in between. And then I'll see you for the edge of the square. So when you've done all the repeats, also remember to do this last row of half trebles, because you've done this seagull row, so that's the last row that contained a seagull stitch, and then you still need to come back and do that last row of half trebles also. So don't forget that last row. And now you're at a point that you can do the border, and yes, you're going to do exactly the same as we've done before. You're going to do a chain 1 and now 26 double crochets on every stitch. I'm going to skip the first one because we've got 28 stitches here and you need 26. I'm going to skip the first one and then do a double crochet on the next and do a double crochet on every stitch until you get to the other side, because that's going to be the easiest. And when you get to the other side, you're going to do a corner, which is again 3 double crochets in the corner, and then again 26 double crochets on your next edge. That's going to be an edge like this, and this time around it's also reasonably easy because you've got 24 rows and you need 26 stitches, so it's more or less 1 stitch on every row. You've got to do an extra one somewhere. So it's 26 stitches on each edge, 26 double crochets, and on the corner you do 3 double crochets. And also remember to mark your corner stitch with a thread, so it's the second of the 3, because that's going to mark your corner. Go all the way around When you get to the beginning, you'll do those 3 double crochets and then close to the first stitch, and then you've completed your square. When you're all done, your square looks like this. You've actually worked your square upside down, so when you connect it to your blanket, you turn it around to actually have the feet walking upright. Take a moment to block your square, that your curling edges become nice and flat edges, and then you're done for this week. So this is the color craft version, this is the merino soft version. I'm of the opinion that you see the feet just ever so slightly better on the merino soft than you do on the color craft this week, but that's just my opinion. Make 4 squares for this week, block them, and then you're ready for next week, and I hope to see you again. Thank you for watching.